Hello and welcome back to the Guide to Digital. This is episode 4, and today we're going to be looking at conditionals. Conditionals are basically how programs make decisions. They're branching or decision trees. So you'll come to a conditional, which is usually an if-then statement, and the computer will basically assess that statement. It will say, if something is true, I will do X, or if something is false, I will do Y. So this is standard logic, and this, even if it's done many times over or with very complex variables, is how almost all branching decisions in programs are made. So we're going to dive into the code again. You should have your Jupyter Notebook up and running. You should be running in Binder, so you should be able to run your code in your browser just like what you see behind me. If you're continuing from the last video, you should be good to go. If not, you'll want to open up your Jupyter Notebook. Go back to getting started if you want instructions on how to do that. The other thing you want to do is run all of the code cells above this. In an example here, I've already done it, but if we go into the notebook, you'll see that I've gone up and I've run the cells here. So I started way up top under the lesson 1 variables, because we're going to be using these variables as we continue to go down. So it's important every time you restart the notebook, you're going to want to run the variables. And again, you run a cell in Jupyter just by hitting Shift and typing Enter. This just ran this cell again, saying supervisor equals Chris, which means if I run the next cell and I'm asking for the output, I'll get that output. So you need to make sure that'll happen. Otherwise, you're going to be running code and you'll be getting errors because the variables that we have previously assigned won't exist within the notebook. So once you've done that, you scroll back down to conditionals, and away we go. So the first thing we looked at in this notebook was this statement. If ate breakfast equals false, print you must be hungry. This is an example of a conditional statement. It's an if statement. If X, then do Y. Python says the then in a very simple way. It uses a colon. So if you notice, we didn't talk about it the first time through, but this little colon here plus the tab, so you see that print isn't right over at the start of the line. It's actually 4 spaces in. This is how Python actually controls and simplifies a lot of the code, or simplifies a lot of the syntax, while still giving you the ability to type code and to create these commands. It uses white space. So here, these two things, the colon and the 4 lines of white space, tell Python that this is a conditional statement. If ate breakfast equals false, then print you must be hungry. And that's all that you need. So here we're going to go in and we have another if statement. If leave credits for Carl are greater or equal to 40, then print leave approved. So now we're going back to our work project, our learning project for the guide, which is to build a leave system. This is something that leave systems do. If you submit a leave request, the system will check to see if you have enough leave left in your bank. If you do, it will then approve your leave, or it will send your request off to your supervisor for approval. And if not, it will tell you that. So this is a core thing that programs do all the time, and we're going to do it right here. So we're going to go into this cell. It's all prepared. We're going to hit Shift and Enter again to run the cell. And we get an error. So the question is, first, what is an error and why did we get it? So if we look at the error, you will see it says a key error. And the key error is Carl. So this is because we are using leave credits, which is the dictionary that we created before with keys and values. And Carl isn't in it. So when Python goes and is looking for the key Carl in the leave credits dictionary, there's nothing there. So it comes back with an error. So there's a couple of things to learn here. One, errors happen. And even just going through this, you're going to see a lot of them. You'll see key error. It will generally give you some hints to what it is, but it means that there's something wrong with the code. There's something wrong with the syntax or with the variables that you've set, and you need to go back and fix it. So that's one thing. The second thing is, it's not a big deal. It happens all the time. even veteran or experienced programmers, as they're going through and doing their work, they will make errors, and this is what happens. They get a little note. It says, hey, you've made an error, you've screwed this up or that up, and then you go back and fix it. There's no harm to this, and there's no foul, especially when you're playing and especially when you're learning. So don't be afraid of errors. Try new things, test new things out, and see what happens, and update and learn as you're going along. So what can we do to fix this error, though? It's telling us that the key, Carl, is not in the dictionary. So why don't we add him? So let's go down and let's do this now. As before, when we were looking at our data structures, to add a key to the dictionary, you just use the dictionary name, so leave credits, hard brackets, and we're going to add Carl with an equal statement and then a value, which is the number of hours that Carl has. So you've got it right here. Shift Enter again to run the code cell. We now have Carl in the dictionary, and we're going to run this statement again. And we have the output leave approved. So if leave credits, Carl, is greater than equal to 40, with a colon and with the 4 tabs here, print leave approved. Just to show you what happens, what if we put 2 spaces in? It also works. Python can actually use tabs or 2 spaces or 4 spaces. The big difference is there's a difference in indentation. Right? So there we go, leave approved. Now, the other thing you can do is you can chain if statements. You can have if and then. So if X is true, do something. Otherwise, do something else. And that's what an if-then statement is. So here's one, and it's just a slight difference. If leave credits, Carl, are greater than equal to 80, print leave approved. Else, otherwise, print not enough leave. So in running this, first think about it a little bit. Think about how much leave does Carl have? What do you expect to see when you run this cell? And then hitting Shift and Enter, you'll see that Carl does not have enough leave. Why? Because we only gave him 79 hours. But this shows how different if-then statements work and how the conditionals work in Python. So you can also do other things. So anything you can check, a conditional statement basically is a true or false. It asks if something is true. If something is true, it does something. If something is false, it does something else. You can chain them. You can say else. So you could give, if the day is Monday, print eat pizza. If the day is Tuesday, print eat a hamburger. If the day is Wednesday, print eat broccoli. And then an else. For example, you don't have Sunday in there. Else, eat whatever you'd like, or free choice. That's a pretty simple thing. But you can also use if statements with other things that will resolve to conditions. An example here is greater than, right, which we used before, or less than, or equal to. So here down below, we have a number of conditions. So is 2 greater than 5? So if you run this cell, is 2 greater than 5? The output is false. So Python can look at numbers, it can look at strings and text, it can look at a whole bunch of things. You can say if the person's name equals George, then do this. If the person's name equals Jody, do something else. And Python will be able to handle that. 14 equals 14 renders to true, and true equals false renders to false. And that's pretty much it for conditionals. So all you need to know really is this is how computer programs make decisions. In a simple way, if something is true, then I'm going to do this. Otherwise, I'll do something else. Regardless of how complicated, and even if you're looking at things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, that's often just a lot of if-then statements running again and again and again, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of times, in order to get to certain results. So this is a nice quick episode. We're going to end it here, and please join me for episode 5 as we look at loops. Thanks so much. Take care.